Welcome back to Scott's Quick Cash Class. We've got a good episode today. My name's Scott. I'm your host. Today we're talking to you about financial prisoner, right? So this is geared, to you younger people out there, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, just getting out of college, or maybe just got out of a trade school, or just got out of, some type of higher education. And you're excited. Maybe you just got a new car, maybe you got an apartment, just moved in with somebody, maybe you just financed a vacation or something like that, or maybe you went out and celebrated, bought a new phone. Well, whatever that scenario is, I'm here to talk about financial jail. We've all been there. I've been there. I definitely remember a time where there was definitely more bills than there was money. Before I kind of started studying and following different people, and just realized, oh crap, how do we get out of this, right? Because that's when I say they, I'm just talking about corporate America, right? They want everyone to borrow money, buy things, and keep spending. Like, you can't get away from it. They just make it easier and easier and easier to spend your hard-earned dollars. And so we have to be even more vigilant to not spend those, I remember, unfortunately, both of my parents have passed away, but I remember when I was younger, and they were talking to me, and I was like, why you gotta go out? Why you gotta spend this money on this? Why you gotta spend your money on this? And, now that I'm thinking, as I've gotten older and more mature, my parents had like 2 activities to spend money on, right? There wasn't coffee shops, there wasn't internet, there wasn't all these different places. You had, through the week, you were at home, and then on the weekend, maybe you went out to eat one time if you were lucky, or maybe you went and did one activity. So there really wasn't all of these different traps to take your money from you, right? And I definitely really feel like that this generation that is coming up has really been kind of unfairly targeted, right? Because we didn't have those issues even when I was growing up. We had the internet and stuff, but there still was just not this many things to take your money, and so hopefully we can give you a couple statistics, couple actionable items to maybe keep a little bit more in that. But the whole point of my series and everything that I talk about, I hit different topics, but it's about getting up here and kind of changing your mindset of how you think. And so, when you get out of jail, they want you to spend a lot of money, because once you get in that debt bubble, you're working in the next 45 years to get out of that debt bubble, right? So 45% of Gen Z already carries credit card debt. Roughly right around $2,800, which isn't a ton of money. I would say that's less than the national average, but it's not a ton of money. It's definitely something that's doable to pay back in a year or two, but that's just kind of a stepping stone, right? You have a $2,700 debt here, and then you have a car payment, and then, you have other things, student loans, I'm sure. So, keeping the credit card down to zero is definitely, because that's also probably your highest interest on anything that you're paying is going to be your credit card. And then the average Gen Z student balance before they actually get a full-time job is about $22,000. And this doesn't break down whether it's private institution, public institution, just in general. $22,000, that's a pretty big nut to crack when you come out of college. You got 22 grand before you even do anything. So if you're below that, good job. Work on getting rid of that, because the longer that stays around, it's just stopping you from getting to where you want to go. And then 6 out of 10 of you Gen Zers live paycheck to paycheck. And that's actually right on par with national average. 6 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck. I've been there before. I got a good story for you. Whenever I was, many moons ago, I used to live in Las Vegas. Right after I turned 21, moved out there, wanted to conquer the world, got started selling cars. And I worked at this one dealership for a few months, and then I transferred to another dealership. And I remember I was only there like maybe a week or two. And I remember one of the managers come up to me, and he was trying to get me to buy a new car, and he was talking to me about my finances. And what I come to find out is he wanted the salesman there to buy cars and get in debt, because he knew salesmen that had lots of bills were more motivated to sell more cars, right? Obviously, that's like a no-brainer, but he was actively trying to sell cars to his own salesman because he knew on the back end that meant that each salesman would probably sell 2 or 3 more cars a month because they had a bigger nut to crack every month. So, you know, I unfortunately had a paid off car, so I was like, no, I'm good, I don't need to. But that kind of brought up a point to me, and I thought about that. I was like, you know what, debt keeps you in prison. Now, I was about 22 at the time, and that's kind of maybe all the more I thought about it. I didn't really start thinking about it till a little bit later. You know, I knew that I didn't want to be part of that debt trap at that point with an expensive car. And so that's my caution to you out there. You don't even realize you're getting in this financial prison. And financial prison is not a fun place to be, because you never get to rest on your thoughts. You're always chasing that next bill, right? How do I get that paid for? How do I get rid of this? And you know, it's physically, it can be, you know, money troubles physically can cause issues. Mentally, they can cause issues. So I really just want to caution you to watch how far down that financial or debt bubble you go, because it's really hard to get out of it. So I'm going to leave you with the tip of the day and the question of the day. If your income stopped tomorrow, how many weeks could you survive without borrowing or using credit? And that means not being late on your bills too. So think about that once. If it's longer than 2 or 3 months, you're moving in the right direction. If it's only a couple weeks, you might want to think about that. And then tip of the day, audit your reoccurring expenses and label each one as a need, want, or trap. And so once you do that, you'll actually be, when you put pen to paper and you actually see what your payments are, and you can break that down and go, is this a need, is this a want, or is this a trap, right? And take one of those traps, get rid of it, and reroute that money to a savings account or an investment account. So that's my tip of the day for you. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you like the information you heard. Remember, I'm never gonna ask you to buy anything. I'm just here to offer some advice from lessons that I've learned through going through the crap of financial education. And so hopefully you guys don't make the same mistakes I do. Thanks for watching. Till next time, every day I'm bringing you 5-minute videos. Click the link below.